the city lights to the country blue, Woody and Lew got the sports for you. From Boston streets to Kentucky's fields, get ready, folks, for the thrill it yields. Woody and Lew, sports and you, talking games, we love it's true. Every play, every score, let's dive in, it's time for more. Lacing up the boots and calling plays, debates and laughs for all the days. From Fenway Park to Derby Run, sports talk magic just begun. Woody Lew, sports and you, sideline stories coming through. Every cheer, heartbeat soar, tune in now, we'll give you more. Celtics screams to Wildcats roar, touchdowns, goals, and so much more. Grab a seat, enjoy the ride, Woody Lew right by your side.
The views expressed by the hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Department of Defense, the U.S. government, or any of its agencies. The information provided is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. No attorney-client relationship is formed by providing this information, and nothing herein should be relied upon as legal counsel. For legal advice specific to your situation, please consult a qualified attorney.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Woody Lew Sports and You. So happy to be here, fired up. It's been a long time. Dan, how have you been?
This has been a stressful night, Braxton, but I've been well. Do you want to get into what we've been doing this evening?
Here's what I'll say to our 18 loyal YouTube subscribers and anyone else that might be on the YouTube sphere. This episode's not live. This is going to be a normal upload. Whenever you see this, we recorded it. You can see what time we recorded it. Thanks to the awesome ticker and setup that Dan has worked super hard on setting up. Dan has really done a good job of taking on the producer role. More on Colin later, but Dan really crushed it. We have a ticker. We're remote. You know, being remote is really big for us. It takes away the driving and the time, and it's going to allow us the opportunity to get more shows out to you guys. Obviously, no change to our Spotify listeners. Spotify can get us on podcasts and listen to us on your car rides home, to work, wherever you want to. You can still find us on YouTube. It's not going to be live. It's going to get uploaded for now. Maybe in the future we can get it on live. But new setup. Every time we're improving our Foxhole, getting a little better. Every show, that's what we strive for, and Dan's a big part of that, and I really appreciate it. Dan, I know you went through a lot for the show today. Is there anything you'd like to talk about on it?
Yeah, no, Braxton, like you said, when the in-person live streams are definitely the ideal. I think we play really off each other when we're in person, but it just wasn't sustainable with the drive in between your house on Fort Stewart and me living in Pooler. So we had to get creative, and I have no podcast, live streaming, producer experience. So this was a lot of elastic bands, paper clips, putting this together to get a solution that I think is going to allow us to provide more content on a regular basis.
So, Dan, I'll tell anybody, you're one of the smartest guys I know. And what this does for us is for the listeners at home. I would like to believe this shows you guys that this is a level of commitment that we are committing to the show, to the listeners, and to ourselves, because by taking this remote with the nature of our jobs, we're going to be places not at the same time, different states. There's going to be distance between us, but this allows us the opportunity to continue to produce content for the listeners, and it allows me and Dan the opportunity to continue to connect, talk about sports, and hopefully By us doing that and our interactions, it brings a smile to your guys' face, and it helps lighten your day whenever you listen to us. So just kind of a little housekeeping. I feel like every show we've done, we've sat at a different bar, sat at a different couch. We've always talked about when the next show is going to be, and I think we're at a 0% batting average on connecting with our next show time. But this is what I can say to you with great confidence. Don't have the best track record, but take it for what it is. We're going to do this show today. This will be our only show in January. I'm going to the field this week for around 45 days. In the month of February, I'll be coming out of the field for around 24 to 48 hours. Daniel and I are going to fit in a show in February to just provide the listener a proof of life and another show to listen to about what's going on. It's going to be a lot of catching up. I'll come out back to a normal work schedule mid to middle March. And from March until June, we're going to be on a consistent remote basis, 2 to 3 shows a week. We'll feel it out. If we have a demand for it, we'll bump it up. If the listeners want it, I'll do 7 days a week. My wife will hate it. She might divorce me. But we'll do it if that's what the listener desires. And then in June, Dan and I both have obligations apart where we won't really have connectivity to be able to do the show. June will be a little off time, picking it back up probably around after the 4th of July. And we're going to run it until we can't anymore. So we're fired up to be here. I'm really happy. Dan's put a lot of work into it. To be honest, this was kind of an idea I had that I told Dan about, and Dan's really ran with it. And I really appreciate it, Dan. I appreciate it more than you can really imagine.
No, I know you got a passion for this, Braxton, and I think when we get into a rhythm, and hopefully this new format will do that, it'll really allow you to shine, talk about what you're passionate about, and really create some good content.
And I'm so sentimental towards you right now, Daniel, that I'm not even going to comment on your South Carolina Gamecock PFG with your New England Patriot beanie. I'm just going to let that go. I'm not even going to bring it up. I'm not
Well,
about it.
If I can make a comment on it. So right now, we are in the low country, Savannah. It snowed. I don't know the last time it snowed in the low country, but it's freezing. So I got to wear my knit Patriots cap because it's very cold, but also represent by wearing my PFG in the low country.
And, producer Colin, more on him later, producer Colin did state that it hasn't snowed here since the last time he was in the Savannah area, which I believe would have been circa
2018.
Sure, about 5 years ago. So it's been a while, and we got a decent amount of snow. I know where I'm at, we probably had 2 to 3 inches, but it was like an ice layer on top. So it wasn't like the fluffy snow that you might be accustomed to more up north, where you can make easy snowballs and easy snowmen. You had to work for it here.
Yeah, and
it was kind of just disgusting. It's especially since you come to places like this, so you don't have to experience that type of inclement weather, but here we are.
It's incredibly dangerous, too, so I do want to, when people listen to this, make sure that you're being safe and not driving if you don't have to drive, especially once it's still this freeze and that ice layer hasn't melted.
But if you are driving in the snow and the ice, I hope you're listening to Woody and Lew Sports on the radio dial.
And Braxton, I'll make a promise to you when we do the Proof of Life episode in February, I will ensure that we have the capability to go live, because the live stream interacting with the chat, the Woody Lew Sports and you, is what's really the most fun and most important to us when we produce the show.
Yeah, and it's all part of the bigger journey, Dan, because I have no doubt that one day we're going to find ourselves on a radio market somewhere, preferably in Boston or another big radio market. And we're going to be doing it live every day, and we're going to have an actual producer akin to producer Colin, more of him later, but an actual guy kind of working the show, giving us direction so we can focus on the content. So it's all part of the plan.
Yeah. So we've been waxing poetic. Let's get into the topics, Braxton. Start us off.
Okay. More on Colin later, but one thing we need to kind of just close the loop on, because it's been a while, since college football playoff. So if you go back to, I believe, our last episode, Daniel and I, this is before the college football playoff actually started, it was around week 10, I believe.
No, I think it was much earlier than that. Like, I don't even know if we got a ranking yet.
No, it was like week 9 because BYU was undefeated.
Oh, they were in the rankings. That's right.
Yeah, BYU was undefeated. They were at 9-0 or 10-0. They were playing Kansas at Kansas in a late night game.
That's right. You stayed up for that.
And I told you I was riding with BYU. I was going with the Mormons, so much so that I was willing to take BYU going further than any team you wanted to bet on.
And you gave me hell for not picking the Irish.
I gave you the field. You the field. You took Texas.
Great pick.
So we make the bet. The show ends. I go home. An offensive powerhouse in Kansas ends up beating the Cougars. Cougars go on a lose streak towards the end of the season. They end up redeeming themselves in the bowl game against Colorado. But you pick Texas, and by essentially default, Texas gets the 5 seed, and they win their one game against the 4 seed. Mm-hmm. So the college football playoff, just to set the scene, Dan, I thought the higher seeds were a pretty decent group. You had Tennessee at a 9. You had Penn State at a 6, Notre Dame at a 7.
Yep.
I gave you flack for not picking your Irish, but they had a really bad loss. Was it week 2, week 3, Northern Illinois? Week 2, Northern Illinois. And they didn't lose another game until last week. And it shows the parity in college football because the same week that Notre Dame was losing to Northern Illinois, a bye game in the MAC, my University of Kentucky Wildcats were winning a game on the road at then-ranked 10th Ole Miss.
Right.
So, and we'll talk about it later with college basketball, but all college sports right now are at a level of parity, which I believe make it a lot more exciting. At the ire of head coaches who've been in the game a while, we could go on a long tangent about the head coaches that are infuriated about it across all sports. But it's really great for the fan. Now, Dan, before we get into your Irish, just at face value when we're looking at the college football playoff, the thing that sticks out to me that I don't feel like national talking heads are discussing enough is that it went the opposite of chalk for our top 4 seeds, who in years past would have been guaranteed a trip to the actual national championship. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's been discussed amongst the, Paul Feinbaum's, the other big-time national commentators of what the CFP needs to do as far as retooling the 12-team format. I think hopefully we move to 16 and we get rid of the first-round buys, but I think they should do the seeding straight and don't give the bye to the conference champions. And I think if you had looked at what the ranking was, regardless of the seedings, your top 5-ish, 3 of the top 5 advanced.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here, and I got it pulled up. And even before me pulling this up, and we're Monday morning quarterbacking this thing. But when you just look at it, and the way that they set it up to where you obviously had the Big Ten, SEC, I'm drawing a blank. Big Ten, SEC, the Power 5, and then the ACC champion. It's kind of weird, right? Because SEC is obviously very strong. Big Ten's obviously very strong. But the group of 5 ended up getting the 3 seed this year, with it being Boise State. Ashton Genty was a great story. He played very well. Then you get a hungry, Penn State team coming off a win against SMU. And then you have a very hungry Texas team being a 12 seed Clemson team. That 5 and 12 matchup, which I will argue, if the playoff bracket doesn't change, that 5 seed's always going to be a good draw, because you can almost guarantee that every 5 seed's going to end up being the runner-up in the Big Ten or the SEC, which is always going to be a very top 5 team nationally for the whole season. coming up against a 9-3 team who maybe played in a weaker conference like the ACC. So it was very interesting the way it played out.
So I'm looking at the final ranking, not the seedings, and I have Oregon 1, Georgia 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Notre Dame 5, Ohio State 6. So the top two teams got knocked off, but the next 4 all made it to the semifinal.
Yeah, but so that's the nature of the way they make the bracket come out with the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and the group of 5 or ACC champion being those top 4 seeds.
What do you think? Do you think you should get a first-round bye as conference champion?
I don't hate it. I think the issue that they run into is most seasons, I believe you're going to have a situation where the ACC champion could potentially be 10-2. Okay. You have a 10-2 or 9-3 ACC champion or Big 12 champion. And then you could have a 12-0 or 11-1 Power 5 who more than likely played a weaker strength of schedule. And then it's always going to be where they get seeded. So I think an appropriate measure would be to get rid of the first round bye. I think this is also, if you wanted to get a 16-team playoff or a more team playoff, I think the way that this actually played out is the best case scenario for that. If you would have had the top 4 teams or the top 5 teams, 1, 2, 4, and 5, 1, 2, 3, and 5, 1, 2, 3, and 4, would have made the Final Four of the college football playoff. Less of an argument because it would just tell the people who didn't want to expand in the first place, hey, the committee got it right.
Right.
But I'm not quick to say the committee got it wrong based on the criteria they were given. I'd go back to, I think it shows a lot of parity in football. And as an SEC guy, I'm a Kentucky fan.
It's the SEC dead.
So, for me, Kentucky fan, SEC football,
right.
To me, it doesn't necessarily UK. It's, Alabama, Georgia traditionally. Now you bring in Texas, your Ole Misses, your Floridas. So I'm always going to be an SEC guy. In my head, Notre Dame, who lost Northern Illinois, is not beating Georgia. Ohio State, who just got rolled in Week 12 by Michigan, isn't beating Texas. And I think that's a lot of people's opinion throughout the season until you actually see them play head-to-head. And then I'm not saying time after time, but more than people like to think, those lesser conferences to the SEC or to the Big Ten, you have a Big 12 team, SEC team pull out an upset. It shows that, hey, there's a lot of parity. People are watching it. It's exciting to watch, so you should just keep doing it. And the only hesitation I have is how long can we play this thing out? Football is a week-to-week sport. It's going up against the NFL.
Yeah.
Things start getting kind of weird with scheduling, TV. The money's going to follow what it wants to follow and what the networks want it to follow. So 12 is a good number. You add 16, get rid of the first week bye. I'm all here for it. It's just more football to watch. And my team, best case scenario is playing in the Gasparilla Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl. So I'm all here for
I have a Pop-Tarts Bowl, man. That is electric factory.
When you have a Pop-Tart on the gurney, getting devoured by the winning team. And it was a really good game.
Yeah.
So
I do need to bring this up. SEC guy, what is your thoughts? I don't know if you read the story or not, but the ACC and the ACC commissioner was talking about not having the top team from the season play in the ACC conference championship game. The idea is you have your regular season conference champion, and then 2 and 3 play each other in the championship game, and that's to not take away from the top team, like we saw with SMU and Clemson. Clemson beating SMU to try and get more teams into the field.
And you're saying this was just ACC, or did you mention SEC as well? I didn't see
No. This is just the ACC commissioner that was floating this idea.
If you wanted me to pick a conference to demolish the most, it's always going to be the Atlantic Coast Conference outside of baseball. It just shows how soft the ACC is.
I teed this up for you.
They have a Louisville team get a decent transfer quarterback and a quarterback coach that goes, I don't know what Louisville went, 9-3, I think. 10-3, the bowl game. I think they beat Washington by a point. So they play these terrible schedules. They get a couple teams that are 9-3.
The Dabos.
Dabo takes his team to 9-3, and he's saying, "I wouldn't want to play Clemson. I wouldn't want to play Clemson." Well, you played Texas and you lost. You played a real
Got
team.
waxed.
The ACC is a laughingstock. It makes completely sense, but to the ACC's credit, they see what's happening with the SEC and Big Ten. There's a clear separation with the SEC and Big Ten. SEC and Big Ten have been, I think there's been some backdoor channel talks about a mega conference and almost having enough leverage for the SEC and Big Ten, probably bringing in 2 to 3 more teams each to their conferences to about 4 to 6 teams, and then just making their own byproduct of the NCAA. That'd play out weird in basketball, but in football it almost makes sense. I don't know the legal and all that stuff, but so for the ACC, they got to keep a reason to be relevant. They're not quite to where the Pac-2 is at right now and what they're trying to do with the teams getting added for the next upcoming seasons. But the ACC knows they're on life support. They know that they have teams who, if the SEC and Big Ten were able to get the leverage, would be going from their conference. When you look at a UNC, a Virginia, Florida State.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they would try to leverage any opportunity they can to get as many people as possible to the college football playoffs.
And I just want to make one final comment on this topic, and I thought it was awesome that you had brand new members to the conferences winning conference championships or competing for them. Oregon, Big Ten, SMU, ACC, Arizona State, Big 12, and you had Texas in the SEC championship game.
It's weird. It's different and it's new. And I'll tell you about Ohio State. I was sitting at my parents' house the day that they lost to Michigan and watching the after the game fights and all the things. I never thought we'd end up seeing Ohio State in the national championship game, eventually winning it. But they did, and it kind of shows how you always say it's a full season, right? By adding more teams to college football playoff, it gets to show that and really highlight that it is a full season, and now you're playing 1, 2, 3, 4 more additional games. If you're not one of the top 4 seeds, it gives you an opportunity. And you got the Arizona State wins the Big 12 for the first time as a first conference. You had Scatterbo running the ball, thinking he was a Heisman candidate. He's good, but he's not a Heisman candidate. You had his dad in the stands making a big scene. The only flaw, Dan, this is the only flaw I'll say about the 12-team playoff is the fact that Dabo Swinney somehow weaseled his way into it. It showed to me, Clemson being the 12 seed proved to me that we haven't quite figured out the selection criteria, and that if I was the head of the committee, I'd say, you know what, this shows that we need to have some more internal dialogue and maybe an outside third-party investigation to ensure that we have the right people in the right place to make the right decision at the right time.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
So let's move on to NFL playoffs.
Hold on, real quick. You didn't have any faith in your Fighting Irish. And all I know is the other day I'm sitting in my house just absolutely housing Guinnesses in support of your Fighting Irish. You went to the game.
Yeah.
You texted me and said, I'm not even at liberty to discuss how much I just got scalped for a ticket.
I still don't know.
The ticket has you not even checking your Sapphire card balance. You're just like, I don't even want to know about it.
No, so a buddy bought the tickets, and I told him to plug a number into Venmo and press send.
You haven't checked Venmo in a week. How was the experience? How was Atlanta? And I'm really curious about this. We haven't talked about this except for right now.
Yeah.
I was very interested in how Atlanta would be with Ohio State, Notre Dame. I can believe how it would be if you had as any SEC team or really any kind of Southern ACC team in it.
Yeah.
But with those two northern schools, like how was the experience at Atlanta?
So I'm going to start off with the positives, and that is Mercedes-Benz. That
Yes.
stadium is unreal. It is so nice, indoors, climate controlled. The concessions are amazing. I thought they were pretty fairly priced.
I sent you the price while
yep.
you were there. I sent you the prices. I did a little research for you.
I had a lot of $3 hot dogs. I had a great time. But Atlanta, this is a hot take, I guess. Atlanta's a trash city. I didn't know what to do there. We were there. I got there Sunday, and we went to a fun bar in Buckhead to watch the NFL playoffs. But it was cold. There wasn't really tailgating near the stadium,
No,
and we just hopped around bars and got an Uber over to Mercedes-Benz. I think the city of Miami needs to figure out, get a new stadium like downtown or on South Beach, and national championship needs to be in Miami every single year. Because when I went there for the Notre Dame-Alabama game in 2013, I went to the beach, I tailgated, I had a blast. I went clubbing at Fontainebleau, or I tried to. I didn't get in, but it was a much better fan experience.
The two things, you're 0-2 at national championship games. But other than that, I have very strong opinions of Atlanta as a whole. I've had to go to Atlanta for leisure, for travel, for work. Actually had to do some work down in Atlanta a couple of years ago. I've gone to, Turner Field, Truist Park, SunTrust Park, actually, when I went when they first opened. But so I have mixed emotions on Atlanta. What I can tell you about Atlanta, though, is it wants to kind of be the capital of the South, but I don't feel like it really captures that energy the way it wants to, outside of just being in Atlanta, Georgia.
I mean, it's a landlocked city, so you're kind of missing a coast with, not a river walk.
It's just the city became too. It's just a lot. Going to Atlanta is a whole thing. I remember I had gotten my license when I turned 16. I turned 16 in the month of June. Birthday's in June. Had my license for a week. My dad said, "Hey, I got us Braves tickets. You're driving." First pitch is at 6. We left Alabama at 2. So I'm driving. Atlanta has just always kind of scarred me. You go to the airport, and the Atlanta airport it's a thing. It's a place. And then you go down to the tarmac in Atlanta airport. They have a shrine to Sherman, who literally burned their city down. A lot of weird things going on in Atlanta. I have a lot of opinions of Atlanta. Okay, so that really wraps up the college football. Transitioning into NFL, a lot of things we can say. What producer Colin, more on him later, what he would like for us to say is, the Buccaneers are in the divisional round, fighting for their lives against a very hungry Eagles team in Philadelphia. Playoffs have been pretty good, surprising to a degree. The Chiefs only win by 9. The Commanders go into Detroit and they win. The Eagles squeak out at home in the snow against LA. They're fighting the fires. And then the Bills squeak out a win against Lamar, which Lamar needed that win, I think, for his legacy.
Oh, yeah.
Not saying he's over, but it's just every year he's in the MVP race. He's going to win the MVP, and then the playoffs come, and he just squanders. So it's been a pretty good NFL playoffs, I'd say. What are your thoughts on it?
I've enjoyed it. NFL playoffs are teams ramp it up, and some of the best players as far as like generational talents, especially with the quarterbacks we have in the AFC, super fun to watch. And up and comers in the NFC with Jaden Daniels, who has just been tearing it up, is also very exciting, and they're making a run that no one expected. But with that is the negatives, and I think all the headlines are around the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and these roughing the passer calls, and the Chiefs historically during their run getting the officials to favor them is, I think, a Sports Illustrated article that came out recently that did the analysis on the Chiefs and who gets the calls. So that's a bit of a scar, a taint on, I guess, just the NFL and the current game of NFL football.
Yeah, and I don't know, so the Will Kane show, I don't know if you know who Will Kane is. He was on ESPN for a while. He ended up transitioning from ESPN to Fox News. He was on Fox and Friends in the morning for a while, transitioning from the morning or from the weekday and the weekend show. Fox News has given Will Kane a 4 p.m. slot on their station. And I had to tune into the inaugural show. I believe it was on Monday or Tuesday. Tuesday. His first show was on Tuesday. Had to leave work around 4:30 to go take some paperwork somewhere and get on Sirius XM, turn on Fox, the Will Kane show. And one of his guests on opening day was Dave Portnoy. And so Dave was talking about how he had bought $500,000 of Trump coin, and he turned $500,000 of Trump coin to $1 million. He then took that $1 million and he has now bet it on the Bills to beat the Chiefs money line. And when he said that, he pretty much said, you know, Donald Trump went up against everybody and won, so I'm prepared to go up against the Chiefs and the refs and Roger Goodell and this bet. So that kind of shows you how it's going. It's weird, you know, it's weird. The Chiefs, I think America is starting to shift. This year, early on, especially with the Eras Tour, you had the female influx of Chiefs fans for Travis Kelce, and everyone's on the Chiefs train. But to the real people who follow NFL, I think people are starting to turn on the Chiefs, and they're ready for a new era. It's weird, though, because the new era ultimately should come from either the Bills or the Ravens.
Mm-hmm. But
you have two kind of quarterbacks who haven't been able to go over that hump, but you know, Patrick Mahomes just continues to be there.
Yeah. I mean, what's crazy is I think this AFC Championship matchup is the 4th playoff meeting between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and that ties Brady and Manning, which,
That's
I mean,
nuts.
you think about it's, yeah.
Wow. What, Josh Allen came out, and he was playing at Wyoming in 18.
18 was Josh Allen, Lamar. Who else was in that class? It was studded.
It was a
QB class.
Yeah, and speaking of quarterback classes, it kind of brings me to the NFC.
Yeah.
With
It's a good segue.
With the Commanders and Eagles. So the Commanders, they take Jaden Daniel. And I'm not – so before the season, my wife and I watched the Hard Knocks with the Giants. Kaylee kind of developed a crush on the Giants GM, and she started pondering the idea of – she just kind of follows the Titans with me, but she started pondering the idea – because it was easy for her to be a Titans fan when we were at Fort Campbell. We were going to Nashville all the time. We were there for – when Tannehill was Tannehill. We were in Nashville. She's rocking $100, Titans sweatshirt that she ruins, getting a haircut downtown with Jack Daniels, cheering on F.U. Brady after we get the pick six, seal the deal, beating the Patriots in the playoffs. So she was there for that. We're not in Nashville anymore, right? So we watch Hard Knocks. She develops a crush for the GM. She's like, I could probably be a Giants fan. And then I was like, that's a scary idea. I hate that for you. We're watching the show. The GM, he has his kids in his office. I don't know if you've seen this or not, Daniel, but so he has his kids in the office, his son and daughter. And he looked at his son and he said, if you were me, who are you taking with this pick? And his son literally said, Jaden Daniels, and I don't think twice about it. Obviously, that's not what happened. The Commanders pick up Jaden Daniels, and you see where they're at in the NFC Championship. I'm happy for the Commanders fans. I really don't have any animosity against Commanders fans. I have all of it against the Eagles. I don't know why. Philadelphia. I don't like the Phillies. Don't hate on this podcast, by the way. Don't like the Phillies.
No hate.
Don't like the Phillies, so I kind of lumped the Eagles into that. And to go back to the Giants angle of all of this, the owner goes in to the GM on Hard Knocks, and he says, where are we at with Saquon? He's like, I'm going to make a call to Saquon, blah, 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 blah. And the owner just goes, I'm okay with really any outcome except for him going to a division rival and, proving it to us. Well, they went to the biggest rival in the Eagles, and Saquon killing it. And I would argue Saquon is really the bread and butter that's got them to this point. And if the Commanders have any chance of really seeing themselves into the Super Bowl, I think the Commanders have to stop Saquon Barkley and make Jalen Hurts win them the game, because I don't know Jalen Hurts can do that.
I think you're spot on with that analysis.
So it's exciting. Sunday's going to be a good day. You get them back-to-back. There's nothing better than the divisional round of football. You get them back-to-back. It fires me up.
No, we're conference championship, man. This is for the going to the Super Bowl.
Conference. I keep saying divisional. Conference championship. As I was, they already won their division. They're trying to win their division ultimately.
So speaking of hopefully a future conference champion contender, and you talked a little bit about the Titans in Nashville and your fandom, that brings us to the number 1 overall pick, and this year does not seem to have that generational quarterback talent that will change the the fortunes of your beloved Titans.
So, Dan, the thing with I got to clear this up. I kept saying divisional. I want to apologize to the listeners at home. Believe me, I know the difference in divisional and conference championship round. They won their divisions. They made it to the playoffs. Then they're playing for their conference championship, NFC, AFC. I got that. Want to clear that up. Anyway, look at the Titans. I was pretty good with the GM hire, getting the assistant GM from the Chiefs. I thought his name right now is kind of slipped me. It was a hard last name to pronounce, but we get the assistant GM to the Chiefs. He's our new GM. We fired Rand Carthon. I didn't like I'm not a fan of firing the GM and not the head coach that they hand selected.
Yep.
I feel like that just sets you another year back, because if it doesn't work out this year, then obviously the new GM is going to fire this head coach, get his guy, which then it gives you like a year lapse of where the GM and the head coach aren't on the same timeline, which may end up in consistent firings and you never get synced up. So I didn't love that move. Brian Callahan without Will Levis is probably fired, because I don't think if Brian Callahan didn't have Will Levis to blame every single game, even when Will Levis wasn't playing, we were still losing. To blame, I don't know. So anyway, Brian Callahan's still here. We have the new GM from a winning organization in the Chiefs. So in theory, he's learned from very good GMs. He's seen what a good head coach should do. He understands player management. Hell, they even picked up DeAndre Hopkins from us in the middle of the year to add another weapon to Patrick Mahomes. So that's exciting. This is my fear, Dan, and it's ironic we're doing the show today. People on like Titans Twitter, Titans message boards, we're all kind of in agreement. I'd like to say that this isn't the worst case scenario. Yes, we have Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. I expect Mason Rudolph to be off the roster. We don't have a clear quarterback of the future, but we also don't have a strong quarterback class, and we have the number 1 pick. People get really set in stone on, hey, number 1 pick, you don't have a franchise quarterback, go ahead and pick the best available. we were starting to think, hey, there's a world where we're smart. There's teams right below us, the Giants, who need a quarterback, picking that 4 hole. Whoever, I don't have the list from you, the whole draft order, but you trade back to that 4 to 7 range.
Mm-hmm.
You get an additional second-round pick this year, an additional third-round pick this year, and a first-round pick next year. You let them take Shador or Cam Ward, whoever they want. We continue to add pieces. You can still, depending on who you trade back to, if you go back to that 4 hole, you can still get a super solid player. You could get a really good piece on the offensive line, another skill player. You don't get the quarterback, you get a skill player or an lineman, and you get draft capital, and you continue to build for that next season. I thought we were on that path until today on Titan Twitter. It has came out that Shador Sanders has been at the Titans facilities all day. The Titans have interviewed every single player on the Colorado Buffaloes asking about Shador. Shador's in the interview. He's got his dad FaceTiming him. Prime's talking to him. And I got Titan media posting clips of Shador making good throws against Arizona.
I gotta figure out how to get the clip from one of our past episodes of when you said that if the Titans draft Shador Sanders, that you're done. You're done with the Titan.
Oh, and that still stands, Daniel.
Okay.
So, really, let me tell you, Daniel, if we draft Shador Sanders, that we legitimately keep the number 1 pick and draft Shador, I'm out.
Okay.
The decision point for me is, do I go NFC to the Buccaneers? Do I go AFC, completely do a heel turn, go to the Jaguars, who just hired Liam Cohen? It's a whole other saga we can talk about, because Liam Cohen and I have some history at UK in the way he handled that departure, and he just had a monster departure after being offered to be the highest paid coordinator in NFL history at the Buccaneers to take the Jags job after kind of, just going, dark with the Bucs after that offer was made. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I feel like the Titans will pull it together and not go Shador. If they know what's best for them, they trade the pick, they get draft capital, you get you a bridge quarterback in free agency. If you legitimately don't think Will Levis is the guy, I'd argue Will Levis has had to learn 4 different systems in 4 years.
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah,
That's hard. And all 4 of those systems were pro systems. So they're very complex. It's not like he went from a spread offense to a spread option off. 4 different pro systems, from Liam Cohen being one of them, Rich Sangarello, Mike Vrabel, and Arthur Smith, or was Arthur Smith? The OC who got drunk after the Green Bay win on Monday Night Football, into this. So I'll tell you this, Dan. I would keep Will. I get a bridge quarterback in free agency. There's going to be one available. You trade back at draft capital. If they don't, yes, I'll have Buccaneers or Jaguars gear on very soon after.
It's interesting that you say that he had to learn 4 different offenses, and that's what I really hope that the Patriots avoid with Drake May. Very, very happy that we got Mike Vrabel, former Titans coach, who probably never should have been let go. Has success at every level of player, a coordinator, and head coach. And I think him and McDaniels coming in is going to change the culture in New England, but I do hope that it does not stunt or hinder Drake May's development.
Well, and I'll tell you about Mike Vrabel. He brought the Titans, since in the recent memory, best Titans teams we've ever had.
Oh, yeah.
He's a player's coach. The players love playing for him because he was a player. He gets it. Where things went south for Mike Vrabel is he got a new GM.
Mm-hmm.
He has a down year, and he's told to select Will Levis in the second round, make them the quarterback, completely tearing Ryan Tannehill out. Ryan Tannehill last season was injured. They throw in the rookie because they got the shiny rookie there. it's done. He also had a lot of problems because with picking Will Levis, that wasn't his pick. So it's a control thing. I find it interesting. He's going to the team that he played for most memorably with the Patriots. With the Patriots akin to the situation he had in Tennessee, to the Cowboys, like, it's not a coach-led team, especially a coach who's still following at the end of the day. Heck, I know there's been a coach in between there, but you're still following that legacy. Mm-hmm. Robert Kraft's going to do what Robert Kraft wants to do, and Vrabel's not going to have that long of a leash in the beginning, but he's going to have to make it work because correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a Patriots fan, but this season you have a year to prove it. Vrabel might be given a 2 to 3 year leash, but it's not going to be a super long one. He has to get it done.
The Patriots completely bungled the coaching staff, the front office. Gerard Mayo never should have gotten the job. He got a handshake agreement from Robert Kraft that he was the coach in waiting, and Robert Kraft didn't want to go back on that. Vrabel, I think, was always the top candidate and the top pick for the head coach of the New England Patriots, but Robert Kraft didn't want to go back on his word with Gerard Mayo, and he couldn't get it done, and they saw that Vrabel was still on the market, had not been picked up, and they needed to move in fast. And I know there's been a lot of chatter about the Rooney Rule and how they made a mockery of it, which they definitely did by interviewing 2 minority candidates like immediately after, 1 and 2 days after they fired Gerard Mayo, so that they could then interview Mike Vrabel, who was, I think, doing a dance of sorts, taking interviews with the Jets, other teams. But they got their man, and I'm hoping that with Drake May, now Josh McDaniels coming in, that they'll start changing it, the culture, and get back to the winning ways that I grew up with. As far as the front office, I think Elliott Wolf has to go. I think you got to completely tear that apart and get someone that Vrabel, I don't know if I want to say like co-signs or signs off on, but make sure that your GM and your coach are lockstep.
I'm not typically a big market guy, fan of the Titans, fan of Kentucky. Now, when you look at the Braves, they have huge capital, and they're probably a top 5 financial team in baseball. But what I will say is, as a kid turning on ESPN in the mornings, Patriots should be good. It's better for football when the Patriots are good. It's better for football when the Cowboys are good. Been a long time. I get that. But so I hate to see storied franchises like that get set back in this capacity. I really like Mike Vrabel. Every player that's played for him really likes Mike Vrabel. He did great things for us in Nashville. He gave me the best years of being a Tennessee fan for my memory. So I hope he does great up there. Now, speaking of coaches who played at the school or the team they're going to coach for, Mark Pope has the Kentucky Wildcats playing some great basketball right now. It's going to be our segue into college basketball.
Good transition. Oh, it's a good transition.
Basketball is awesome right now. Kentucky's 14-4, and I couldn't be happier. We lost our last game to Alabama, but I don't care. It was a great basketball game. Mm-hmm. Auburn's great. Duke's great. We beat them. Don't know why Iowa State gets the respect they do. I'm not big on Iowa State. But you got Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, Houston, Michigan State.
SEC is a basketball conference. It's a basketball conference. It just means more. It just means more.
I would argue SEC basketball is better than SEC football this year.
Yeah.
Top to bottom. Kentucky's going into Vanderbilt tomorrow. A Vanderbilt team that has
I want to say they have 10 teams in the AP top 25. How many does the ACC have, Braxton?
They got Duke at 2 and Louisville at 25. And
they have two teams in the top 25.
Yeah, Kentucky or SEC's a basketball conference. It's so exciting.
Back on the road, my ass.
Yeah, right. And what's upsetting is next Saturday the 1st of February, Kentucky plays Arkansas, which I feel like should be the clear choice for college game day. It's probably going to end up being North Carolina at Duke, unfortunately.
ESPN loves the Tobacco Road rivalry.
Exactly.
The
But-
Krzyzewski, Dean Smith, Roy Williams, Krzyzewskiville, they love that.
But basketball is so good right now. I mean, Duke's 16-2, one loss to me in Kentucky, which I love. Alabama 16-3, Florida 17-2, one loss to Kentucky. Tennessee 17-2 with a loss to
Auburn's
Vanderbilt.
number one.
Auburn's number one, but Tennessee
Or damn.
17-2 lost to Vandy, right?
Yeah.
Texas A&M 15-4, Mississippi State 15-4, Ole Miss 15-4.
That's wild. That's crazy.
The SEC is going to have so many teams in, and it's not just about the SEC. Basketball has been great.
No, you're going to be in the field. Sorry. Where's the SEC tournament this year? I was going to say, Woody and Lew, Sports and You make a road trip to the SEC tournament.
I'm gonna. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm gonna default and say Nashville. It's typically in Nashville. 2 years ago, it was in Tampa. They rotated Nashville, Tampa, Atlanta, and St. Louis. So with like 90% confidence, it's one of those 4 places. I'd lean Nashville. I don't know off the top of my head. It makes me a bad SEC fan.
That's like the new Big East tournament, like the old Big East at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, with the SEC championship games always played on a Sunday. The games start on a Wednesday.
Yep.
Typically, I don't think they're pushing it to Tuesday. There's not going to be a bad game in that whole tournament. Even the Wednesday games used to be like,
I'm going to
5.
say there's a do-out for me. I'm going to try and figure this out. If we can, I think, go to the SEC tournament.
I'll be in the field.
Take the show on the road. You sure you'd definitely be in the field in March?
Yeah, I'll come out right before Selection Sunday, which is the championship game, or not championship, the championship game of the SEC tournament.
Yeah.
The only chance I had a book purchase. There was a book for like $300 I was going to buy. I had already talked to my boss when I was at Fort Campbell to go to the SEC tournament. I had a book I was about to purchase for like $300. COVID happens that night. SEC tournament gets canceled. Didn't get to go to it. But, so basketball is great right now, man. I love seeing Michigan State at 16-2, especially after their Champions Classic. People kind of wrote them off after that, and they've played great basketball. There's buzzer beaters. There's everything. UConn coming out back-to-back championships are 14-5, sitting at 19 in the top 25. But Danny Hurley's on the sideline saying, "Who do you think you're talking to? I'm the best coach in basketball." St. John's is in the top 25. Louisville, Pat Kelsey has done a great job at Louisville. Lost to Kentucky, but he's got them back in the top 25 for the first time since the Trump administration the last time.
I'm excited for college basketball to take center. I feel like with the 12-team college football playoff and the NFL playoffs, you follow it closely, diehard Kentucky fan, but it has not taken center stage yet, and it will very shortly, especially as we get deeper into conference schedules, which have implications for seeding, and then obviously conference tournaments. I'm excited because the past 2 years, so I was at NTC 2 years ago for the bulk of conference tournaments, and then Selection Sunday and the first few rounds of the NCAA tournament, and then we were in Poland last year. So it's really been 2 years since I've experienced, college basketball and March Madness. So I'm excited.
I'm pretty upset that I missed the conference championship because I always really love the conference championships. Yeah. But I'll get to the NCAA tournament. Last year we were in Poland. I stayed up until the middle of the night to watch Kentucky, which, I'm never more thankful for Jack Golke because he got Calipari to Arkansas, who was like 1-5 in SEC play. He just lost his best player for injury. I don't want to say he's not hurt, but they're saying that the game he hurt his hand, that very next game he went and dropped 17 points. I think it's a classic Cal, hiding your best player so he gets draft stock. Now they have like 7 or 8 scholarship players even available to play. They ironically win their first SEC game without Boogie playing. But I got Mark Pope. like I said, we're losing games. Like we lost to Alabama by I think it was 5, like 103 to 97 or 102 to 97. It was a great game.
Yep,
And
it was.
basketball,
I watched it.
yeah, like basketball's good. Like in the big scheme of things, us losing by 5 in a complete shootout to Alabama, like that's not going to hurt us come Selection Sunday. It's not going to hurt us in tournament. It just makes us better. Play better defense. I get it, but it's high level basketball, night in and night out. I think Michigan's getting rolled right now as we speak. Last I checked, but it's just great basketball. I'm really excited for it. I cannot wait for the NCAA tournament. I typically, whenever Kentucky loses, which has been very early recently, I turn it off. But I think this year's going to be the year that I see it all the way through because it's just really high-level basketball. And NIL maybe helped college basketball to a degree. I think it hurt it in the sense.
It's just a different – I mean, I don't think it's had as big as an impact as for football because of, how prevalent one and done was before – NIL and like the transfer portal. So I would say that NIL has helped it in the reverse way to where now different teams can give different money allotments depending on like how much money they give their football program, legal stuff around. And then the transfer portal with playing time and how it's just awesome. And the thing with the SEC just being good is not happenstance. Like Greg Sankey pulled all the ADs together. Like it was a dedicated effort to like, hey, we're great at football. Yep.
We're really good at baseball. Our basketball, like year in, year out, it was like Kentucky and then insert like 2 to 4 teams who were like fringe, consistent top 25. And now you look at it and you've had like, 12 or 13 of the 16 teams have already been top 25 this season.
Yeah.
And we're at like week 11 or 12. So.
And it's not even your like traditional SEC. I mean, Kentucky's playing really well, but I mean, Florida. It's not Florida. I mean, I think when I think of SEC basketball, I think of Kentucky, Florida, LSU.
They're at bottom of the barrel. You got Missouri's 15-4.
Yep. Missouri. I think Missouri too, but that's more from their Big 12 days, like the Missouri-KU rivalry.
Buzz Williams, Texas A&M's great. Mississippi State out of nowhere is good. Georgia just fell out of the top 25 because they lost that game to Arkansas, but Georgia was a top 25 team. They rolled Kentucky in Athens. They were good.
I mean, and you have Texas too now. You always forget, Texas joined the SEC. I mean, they were always at the top of the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, and they were at the mercy of having some good coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the guy at Tennessee right now, I don't know why I can't think of his name, but going from him to Shaka to Chris Beard.
Rick Barnes, right?
Rick Barnes.
Yeah,
Rick Barnes, Shaka Smart, Chris Beard until he assaulted his wife, which is now just winding up in another SEC school, and Ole Miss has them rolling. So it all comes full circle. But college basketball.
College basketball. And I do want to say this before we move on from college basketball. I have to give a shout out and a plug for the man from Maine. My man, Cooper Flagg. He is, I think, running away with the Naismith National Player of the Year. I'm not as good at rolling off stats as you are, Braxton. You definitely have a penchant and a skill for knowing records and statistics, but I just know that Cooper Flagg, statistically and the eye test, is the best player in the country.
So I'll say this about Cooper Flagg. Is 2 things. Our last show, I was wrong about the Cougars of BYU, but I was right when I said I was concerned -0 about Cooper Flagg and Duke against Kentucky, in which I was proven right.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say the thing that I don't like about Cooper Flagg the most is how just likable he is. He just plays basketball. Because when you think
he's a gamer.
When you think really good white Duke player, you think of Christian Laettner.
Yeah. Christian Laettner.
JJ Redick.
Grayson Allen. I hated Grayson Allen. Oh, we don't hate Woody Sports and you, but
no, we don't hate on this podcast. But you think of dudes who you just loathe if you're not a Duke fan.
Yeah.
Which I think it's, of all the programs, real quick, of all the programs of like fans of a team that didn't go to that school, Duke ranks in the top percent. But the thing about Cooper Flagg is he's a young kid. I think he just now turned 18. He's just a good. He's a
good kid from Maine. That's it. I think it's really like no one dislikes anyone from Maine. You can't.
Outside of Cooper Flagg, they have that center and they have that other white shooting guard who's kind of annoying. I can't think of their names, but I think they have 2 or 3 lottery picks, which is a lot. But John Shire, I think, has done a pretty good job coaching them, and he's done really well. And he's also getting a great benefit of the doubt with how bad the ACC is this year. When you're looking at a team who Pat Kelsey in 1 year, halfway through the season, has already won more games than Louisville's done in the last 2 years with Kenny Payne, and they're the second best team in the ACC. So it looks a little better. It's a little more robust than it could be if they're more competitive. But
the ACC being down it's weird. It's like bizarro world, and it's disappointing. I've been watching. There's a really good documentary series on the ACC network about the history of the ACC tournament, and just so many good historical teams and coaches from the ACC, and the current version of the ACC. I mean, doesn't even come close to the historic ACC.
Well, I mean, the historic ACC now has SMU in it. But what's weird about the ACC, so North Carolina, if they wouldn't have gotten the national championship, their coach would have already been fired. But last night, if you stayed up till 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Caleb Wilson, he was down in Kentucky and North Carolina. He had been trolling both fan bases, saying he was going to go to Kentucky, he's going to North Carolina. Word on the street is he got North Carolina finally upped their offer over Kentucky for NIL back in mid-December. He made a solid commitment. Continued to troll UK fans. Committed last night in North Carolina, which may save their coach's job, who I'm looking right at him. I don't know why his name slipped my mind, but it's weird that, and this is where NIL still comes into play, because he picks North Carolina. It's because of NIL. He wanted to go to Kentucky from all the insiders. He wanted to go to UK. He really liked Pope. The reason he didn't go to UK, allegedly, was North Carolina upped their NIL offer over UK's. And he did not feel that he would be able to showcase his talents as a freshman at Kentucky as much as North Carolina, which your face is exactly what I would say, because if you're really that good, you're going to play. If we're really offering you this much money, you're going to play. So anyway, he commits North Carolina last night, and in his statement he says, I'm really happy to commit to North Carolina, and now I look forward to the next step of being a great one and done and going on. Which, back to the UConn thing, that's good for Caleb, and he wants to be a one and done and make millions of dollars in North Carolina for a season and go to the NBA. But what UConn's really proved in the last 2 years is you can have a good freshman, 1 or 2, but sophomores, juniors, and seniors are winning championships now.
Yep.
It's not 2012 anymore.
Yep.
One and done. Boogie Flan. Boogie Flan's going to be a lottery pick. Boogie Flan sits out a game, and Arkansas wins their first conference game. So one and dones are cool if the system fits and the coach manages them the right way. But that there's a kid down in Arizona State right now. He's a one and done. I'm really show prep poor, but I can't think of his name. He's in one and done. He's gonna be a long kid.
We're knocking the rust off. It's we had a long hiatus.
But Arizona State has a kid who was picking between a Kentucky, Duke, and someone else to be in one and done. He's like, I'm going to Arizona State. Well, what's Arizona State doing right now? But he's a one and done. But they're not going to be in the conversation in March. So what's it really about? And that's what I'm happy about with Kentucky is they're, Pope, and I think a lot of coaches are doing it. I would even argue John Shire and, Nate Oates, like, they want guys who want to win right now. I want you to be great in the NBA, but I also want to hang, Elite Eight, Final Four, national championship.
And I think it's like the successful programs, and you named obviously UConn, Duke, that find that balance between they get that core of experienced veteran, upperclassmen that can play together, and then that infusion of the one and done talent that can, integrate into what they've already built, and that is going to be the recipe or formula for success for a long and sustained tournament run in March and April.
And the last thing I'll say about it, and this is not me being a battered wife, but with John Calipari, he was the king.
I was like, where are you going with this?
He was the king of one and dones.
Yeah.
He went
There's a 30 for 30 named after him.
He went to multiple Final Fours and won a national championship off one and dones. Even him, the one and dones have surpassed him to the point where he couldn't even manage with NIL with one and dones. He couldn't even successfully manage one and dones to his own demise. When you look at just last season, the two best players on that team, according to the draft, according to output, Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham, did not start. Did not start a single game. Came off the bench for John Calipari. But DJ Wagner, who's, leading his team to a 12-6 record at Arkansas, he started every game. And Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepherd, back-to-back lottery picks in the NBA draft, didn't start a single game. But it's because of promises made, because you're a one and done, because of this, because of that, promises made for playtime.
NIL, I'm sure.
NIL. And you look at teams who actually win in March, there's probably a guy on that team who's got some promised minutes, and he's probably got a little better benefits than his other teammates. But the sum of the team is they're playing because they want to freaking win, and they want to see what them winning can afford them in the future. Rather that be NBA, a potential transfer. If you look at San Diego State, you got their point guard Lamont Bullard leverages his national championship run to come to Kentucky, playing overseas, whatever it is. But when you've got like a group of 5 freshmen, and that freshman in high school was better than that other freshman in high school, so you give him more promises than the other, but then you get to college and it's not the same game. Now what? Now you lose to the first round of Jack Elke. That's all. That's all I got on that.
Yeah. So I know we're coming up on an hour. I know we had one topic left with spring training. Do you want to address that real quick, or should we give our final thoughts and wrap up here?
No, I'm not leaving without talking about my Atlanta Braves and spring training. Okay. So real quick, you were with me last year, and I think when I really kind of fell for you, Dan, was you're the first person I met who was so fired up about spring training baseball the way I am. Spring training baseball is really special to me. Spring training baseball is almost my favorite part of the baseball season, weird way. Spring training baseball allows you the opportunity to see the best of the best play in the same game with your guy who is not expected to arrive to the MLB for 5 years down the road, 4 years down the road. You have a mix of prospects, a mix of great players. You have your split squad games in high school.
My favorite part of spring training is when the local Boston colleges, so Northeastern, Boston College, BU, when they're doing their swing through Florida, they will play against the Red Sox.
Yeah, dude. So my favorite memory in high school was one year me and my mom and dad took a trip to Florida, and we just hopped spring training sites. We just went to Florida, and we just...
That's incredible.
I went to a baseball field that had aluminum stands smaller than my high school. The aluminum stands was enough for 20 people, and I watched Manny Machado play a game on a field smaller than a high school field.
That's
as far
incredible.
as stands and stuff. And
where do Braves? So they're in the Grapefruit League. Where is their camp?
So it was in Orlando at the ESPN Worldwide Sports.
That's right. That makes sense. Yeah.
And now they're playing in Lakeland, which is just southwest of Orlando. And this might be my ignorance. I was looking up tickets actually for when I came out of the field. I wanted to do a little spring training Magic Kingdom double dip.
You definitely got to do that when you. Well, the season, I mean, it starts in March now, opening day.
Does
it work? Will you be around?
Spring training starts like February 22nd, which is crazy.
Are you out of the field?
No, not till like March 12th. So I'd be on that latter half right before opening day.
Yeah.
But which is also going to hurt your chances of seeing some more of the primetime guys, that like mid to late swing there. But so the Braves today, real quick, we just signed Jurickson Profar from the Padres.
Saw that.
He was a 280 guy last season. I think he had about 20 home runs, 80 RBIs, something to that capacity. We signed him to a 3-year deal. And I just wanted to read you. Now, the Braves obviously didn't have the best season last year. Injuries have been a crux, I think.
Cy Young winner.
Yes, I think. I mean, we brought him back from the dead, Chris Sale. But the Braves kind of suffered from injuries last year, and I don't want to say roster mismanagement, but it's never clicked at the same time. We had so much individual talent, but right now with the signing of Profar, our projected lineup is Acuna, Michael Harris, Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, Ozzie Albies, Profar, Sean Murphy, and Orlando Arcia.
Sounds pretty good. What are your thoughts? Sounds good. Sounds real good on paper.
I think so. The Braves have a lineup of guys who can all hit 20-plus home runs.
Yeah.
And
that's tough division.
And I think that's all great and all, but it's going to come down to pitching. And it comes down to winning games that matter. We can go out on a West Coast swing and run like a 16-4 record on a West Coast trip, but you get us back home and have, the Nationals come down and we could go 1-3 in a series for no reason. Yeah. Or go split with the Phillies, and the Phillies are throwing like 2 bullpen games and they're 2-3 guy. I
think the Braves are in a similar spot with the Red Sox of just being in probably the 2 toughest divisions in baseball, in the NL East and the AL East. I think top to bottom, like, just stacked, and you got the big markets that can spend the money.
The Dodgers.
I wanted to get to that too, talking about spring training, about how the Dodgers are they're ruining baseball.
They are taking the game of baseball.
They got Sasaki. Their rotation should historically be the greatest rotation ever.
There's not a team I hate more in any sport than the Los Angeles Dodgers right now. It's obnoxious.
As a Braves guy, Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox.
Yeah.
The Dodgers should just completely overshadow what was insane. It's insane.
They have 7 of those dudes, and they just keep buying them. They just keep buying more guys
because they can. Where's this money pit? Where's this money tree?
That's the thing is the Braves have. I think the last I looked, the Braves have a top 5 capital in baseball. Which Atlanta's a big market, but it's not the market. So we have a lot of money.
It's a big, and I would say the Braves anecdotally are not known for huge free agent signings, and I feel like their success has always come from their evaluation of talent, their farm system, and getting team friendly deals.
Yeah, and we're a regional franchise because really the Braves fandom kind of goes from Kentucky, Tennessee, South.
Yeah, I think as far north as Virginia, Southern Virginia,
Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana,
Northern Florida.
Yeah, Northern Florida. So it's a regional team with a decent market, and Alex Anthopoulos is a phenomenal general manager.
But they're still on Valley Sports.
Well, there's been talk time for Valley Sports. But, I think the Braves can be good, but it's almost at the end of the day, they're going to have to pay the piper and play the Dodgers at some point, no matter when it is. They're going to have to play the Dodgers to get to a World Series. And that's any NL team. I'd love to be in the American League right now. At least I feel like I have a fighter's chance.
To get to the World Series, absolutely.
Yeah, just to get. I mean, God, I hate the Dodgers. This is not a hate podcast, by the way.
Not a hate podcast. I just don't know. Like, where is this? Like, this? They just go out to the money tree and get some more money.
And,
like, where is this? Where did it come from?
And it might be some lawyer homework for you, but like a salary cap, not a thing.
No. There's no salary cap. It's a luxury tax, okay. And they have just decided that's worth paying.
And, well, California knows a lot about high taxes, so they're used to it. There's no shock and awe factor for them there.
Yeah, I mean, like I know like Magic Johnson's in the ownership group, but he's like a minority. Like I don't understand this money tree. And I was gonna make a joke, but I'm not. Our hearts go out to the wildfires and what's the devastation. I don't mean to laugh. In all seriousness, Woody Lew Sports and You, hearts go out to what's going on out there, and we'd be remiss not to mention the devastation that's going out in Los Angeles.
Correct.
So I think that's with that, Braxton, probably a good wrap up. I know you gave at the front of the podcast kind of our current status and our plan going forward, but if you would like to start with any final thoughts on today's recording.
Yeah, just like I said, currently we have 18 YouTube subscribers. This wasn't a live episode. We apologize for that. But it's something new. Every episode's been something new, for better or worse. I hope that us at least just giving this a go, showing you guys that we do care. We're still alive. It's been a while. We're very busy in the outside world, so I hope you understand that. But we really like it. It's good for us. We hope it's good for you. We want you to continue listening because we have no plans of going anywhere. The time and space might be a little different depending on what we have going on. But Dan's done a great job. Producer Colin, more on him later. He's somewhere. We've all really put our hearts and souls into it. We hope you enjoyed to listen. We hope you, if you're new here, you subscribe. I hope if you're listening to this on Spotify, you make sure you subscribe and download on Spotify. I hope that we can make your day a little better. We hope you can talk. And I hope you loved our takes. I also hope you hated our takes, because sometimes when you hate the takes, you would keep listening so you can get more upset about what we're talking about. So I really enjoyed it, Dan. I really appreciate all the hard work you've done to keep this thing afloat.
Absolutely, Braxton. No, this is a passion project, both of ours, and I learned a lot on the production side, so did some live troubleshooting even during this recording. If it sounded like I was having a stroke, I was getting some bad echo, but I think I figured that out, and I think I figured out the issues we had with the live stream capabilities. So going forward, we're going to come to you live, and we're going to have that chat for the Woody Lew Sports and You, the most important part of this podcast, to interact with us and for us to take your comments, questions, and engage with you. So with that, thank you for listening. And as Braxton said, like, subscribe, download.
Thank you, guys.